This happened a few years ago. I was 32 and had just moved to a new town as a freelance graphic designer. I thought moving would help spark some creativity. It should have been a regular Halloween for me, just me at home with my sketches and music. But I never stopped thinking about that night. I sat in my half-furnished living room focused on my drawing. The upbeat tunes were in the background. Dim lights from jack-o'-lanterns outside flickered, casting strange shadows across the walls. I thought it felt warm. But then I heard faint thudding sounds coming from above. I stopped and listened. Maybe it was just the old pipes in this rented house. I shrugged it off and turned up the music, hoping to drown it out. But the thuds grew louder. They didn't sound like pipes anymore. I looked at the clock. It was getting late. I tried to shake it off. The night felt heavy with silence, the kind that made me aware of every creak and rustle. I thought I heard giggling outside. I convinced myself it was just kids playing. It felt strange, though. I set my sketch pad down and stepped outside to clear my head. The street was empty except for flickering lights from my neighbor's yard. It looked lovely, but also eerie. I scanned the surroundings. No kids. No one trick-or-treating. A chill crept up my spine. I went back inside. The laughter felt much closer now, floating in the air, echoing around me. Maybe it was kids playing Halloween pranks. I tried to reason with myself, but I felt uneasy. I returned to my drawing, but the laughter continued, scratching at the back of my mind. Each giggle made my skin prickle. I thought about the strange noises from above. The laughter blended with them, forming some weird chorus. My heart raced. I decided to check outside again, but my gut twisted with worry. I crept to the window and pulled back the curtain. What I saw froze me. The yard looked empty, yet I could still hear the laughter. I glanced around, but still nothing. Just my own home, shadowy and still. Then, the laughter turned into whispers. "Help us," they said, almost in unison. I felt a shiver. What was going on? Suddenly I heard a soft knock at the door. My breath caught. I stood frozen, not knowing if I should answer. I waited, but the whispers didn't stop. Then it all went silent. I didn't understand. What was happening? Part of me wanted to open the door, but fear held me in place. Just then the laughter returned. It felt like it was inside my head. I felt trapped, completely alone, yet somehow surrounded. The laughter swelled again, rising like an eerie storm. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned away from the door. My heart pounded. What were they? Why were they here? I couldn't shake the feeling of wrongness. I pulled my knees to my chest and wrapped my arms around them. I wanted to disappear, to escape this strange Halloween night. But the shadows continued to dance, and I realized this night would haunt me forever. That Halloween was never just a night to be alone. It was a night I couldn't forget. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat in the darkness, the whispers still echoing in my ears. I felt trapped in a nightmare that hadn't quite formed. I wanted to turn on the lights, to push back the shadows, but the flickering from the jack-o'-lanterns outside held a strange allure. Instead, I sat immobile, my mind racing. Who were they? What did they want? I glanced at the door again. It remained shut, but the feeling of something lurking just beyond it made me hesitate. I needed to know what was happening. My design instincts kicked in, telling me that every mystery had a solution, but this didn't feel like ordinary problem-solving. I stood up, taking slow, deliberate steps towards the door. The floor creaked beneath me and I paused. The laughter faded slightly, replaced by a low murmur. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I reached for the doorknob but pulled back. I needed to be sure it was safe. So, I moved away again, glancing towards my drawing desk. The shadows inside my living room twisted and turned, as if they had a life of their own. Then I saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned, heart racing. It was just a shadow darting past the window. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of panic. Get a grip, I told myself. There's nothing there. But the soothing words didn't convince me. The whispers transformed into faint giggles again, weaving through the house like a song on wind. I backed away from the door and stumbled into the hallway. I needed to escape, but where would I go? My mind raced through possibilities, but nothing seemed safe. Meanwhile, the peeling wallpaper around me seemed to twist in the dim light, and for a moment, I thought I saw faces staring back from the patterns. I closed my eyes, willing the sight away and focusing on the sound around me. The giggles stopped, and in that silence grew a tension so thick it felt suffocating. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone. Maybe I could call someone. The thought offered a sense of comfort, but as I turned it on, the screen lit up and showed me an alert. No service. A jolt of anxiety shot through me. My breath quickened. I was cut off. That's when I noticed something on the floor. A thin piece of paper almost hidden beneath the coffee table. My heart raced again. I bent to pick it up, hands shaking. The paper was worn, like it had been handled many times. Written in faded ink were the words, "We're waiting for you." A chill ran through me. The laughter started up once more, now a chorus of all the voices I had heard. I gripped the paper tightly, my pulse loud in my ears. My breath quickened, and I realized I wasn't alone in the house. I spun around, scanning every corner as that laughter turned into whispers again, swirling around me. I had to find a way out. I darted back to the door, adrenaline pumping through my veins. But just as I reached for the knob, the lights flickered and went out completely, plunging me into darkness. I stood frozen. "Help us." The voice was clear now, right at my ear. I felt a cold breath on my neck. Someone, or something, was in the house. The darkness surrounded me like a thick blanket, and the whispers grew louder, echoing off the walls. I could barely breathe. Panic clawed at my throat. I fumbled for the door, but all my instincts screamed at me to get as far away from it as possible. I took a step back, eyes straining, trying to see through the blackness. Suddenly, the whispers shifted. They transformed into a haunting melody, a song I couldn't quite place. I felt a sickening pull toward it, drawing me deeper into the abyss. I had to resist. My heart raced as I turned, half expecting to see someone behind me. Nothing. Just shadows dancing around. I needed a plan. I thought of the windows. If I could just pry one open, I could get out into the fresh air, escape whatever was creeping around the house. I stumbled back through the hallway, hands brushing against the walls, feeling for the faint outlines of windows. Mid-stride, I heard a loud crash from the kitchen. It sent a jolt of fear through me, bringing my feet to a stop. Adrenaline surged. Curiosity sparked, fighting against my fear. What if it was someone? What if I was wrong about being alone? I edged toward the sound, heart hammering in my chest. I ducked into the kitchen doorway, inching along the wall. Just then, the low humming filled the air once more, this time accompanied by soft, childlike giggles. I felt sick at the sound. As I peered around the corner, I caught sight of the source. A small figure stood with its back turned to me, swaying slightly, almost dancing. My pulse quickened as I took a step closer, but it paused, and I froze. A sense of dread washed over me, and I nearly turned back to the safety of the living room. "Who's there?" I called, hoping for a friendly voice. No answer came, only more laughter, now echoing throughout the kitchen like a chilling harmony. My throat tightened. I had to know, had to. I took another cautious step forward. What I saw made my stomach drop. The figure was a child, dressed in tattered clothes, their hair matted and wild like they had been lost for days. They turned, just slightly, and I saw the pale skin that looked ghostly in the dim light. Their eyes were wide, almost hollow, staring straight at me with an intensity that made my breath hitch. "Come dance with us," they whispered, their voice sweet yet eerie. I felt compelled to move, as if an invisible force was pulling me toward them. "No, no, stay away," I shouted, trying to regain control. But instead, I felt the floor shift beneath my feet, growing unstable. Suddenly, a cold rush of air swept through the kitchen, extinguishing the candles and plunging everything into complete darkness again. I stumbled back, nearly falling over the edge of the dining chair. Then I heard it, a faint tapping sound coming from the window. It broke the tension, drawing my attention away from the child. I squinted into the black void. My heart raced again, this time with a sense of urgency. I had to see. I had to figure out what was happening. As I moved toward the window, the whispers melted into silence, the child vanishing from my mind. I reached for the curtain, pulling it aside just as the tapping came again. I gasped at what I saw, a face pressed up against the glass staring directly at me. What had I gotten myself into? I needed to act, and fast. I hesitated, breath caught in my throat. The face against the window was pale, almost shimmering in the darkness, but it was the eyes that held my attention. They were wide and desperate, filled with an emotion I couldn't place. Fear? Sadness? I didn't know, but the sight of it sent a shiver down my spine. I backed away, curling my fingers into my palms. Was this another trick of the mind? Somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, I had to remind myself of what I knew. But the window was still there, and the face was still staring, unmoving. "Who are you?" I said, but my voice trembled. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the glass and sending my heart racing again. Then, for a fleeting moment, something shifted. The face seemed to smile, just a small curl of the lips. I couldn't tell if it was inviting me or mocking me. Either way, I felt like I was being pulled into a vortex of fear and confusion, fighting against an unseen force urging me to take a step closer. I turned from the window and dashed into the living room, heart pounding fiercely. I needed to find a way out. Maybe I could break a window. Maybe I could call for help. Checking my phone, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. No signal. The eerie silence returned, settling heavily around me. That's when I heard it, a whisper, low and haunting, tracing my name. "Come play. Come play." I squeezed my hands into fists, trying to block it out. Whatever this was, child, ghost, or something else entirely, I refused to be a player in their game. I moved to the front door, palm pressing against the cool wood. It felt solid. Maybe it was locked. I twisted the handle. It turned, but nothing happened. It wasn't just locked. It was stuck. My heart dropped. I knew I was trapped. I glanced over my shoulder, my gut twisting. The window was still rattling slightly from the wind, but there was nothing there now. No face. I felt my breath come in sharp gasps as a new wave of fear rolled over me. I needed to figure out what was in this house. Then, in the corner of my eye, I noticed an old mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. Why had I not seen it before? I approached it cautiously, heart pounding painfully in my chest. Maybe it held some clue to what was happening. As I peered closer, the reflection didn't match the room behind me. The scene was different, obscured by a misty fog. I squinted, hoping to see better. That's when I saw it again. A shadowy figure darting across the reflection, heading toward me. Panic surged. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape what was behind me. I whipped around just in time to feel the chill of air brushing against my back. But there was nothing, only emptiness. I needed to know more. I needed to unlock this mystery before I lost my mind completely. And deep down I knew it was going to get worse. I took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever awaited me, knowing that the answers I sought might just be more dreadful than I imagined. As I turned back to the mirror, I heard a laugh, a soft, sweet laugh resonating from somewhere within the house. It was not just a sound. It was a calling. I stepped closer. And that's when everything went dark again. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me. I felt as if the air had been snatched from my lungs. For a moment I was suspended in nothingness, my mind scrambling to comprehend the sudden void around me. Where had the room gone? Just as panic began to rise, light flickered back on, illuminating the space with a dim, ghostly glow. I blinked, adjusting to my surroundings. I was still in the living room, But something had changed. The mirror hung straight now, reflecting the room perfectly, and the haunting laughter had faded into an eerie silence. My heart was racing as I looked around. Nothing seemed out of place, yet an unsettling energy filled the air. I stepped back, wanting to put space between myself and the mirror. That was when I noticed something glinting near my feet. It was a small silver key lying on the floor, sparkling under the light. I picked it up gingerly, instantly aware that this was no coincidence. Where had it come from? The thought of finding a key felt too hopeful. Maybe it would unlock the door. Maybe it would free me. I scanned the room, searching for a lock that might match it. The old wooden cabinet by the wall had a delicate keyhole, rusted and worn. I approached it cautiously, running my fingers over the surface. My instincts screamed at me to be careful. What if this was another trap? With trembling hands, I inserted the key into the lock. It clicked, and I took a deep breath, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. As I turned the key, I felt a strange warmth radiating from it, almost pulsating. I pulled the cabinet door open. Inside, I found an assortment of dusty books and faded paper, but something else caught my eye. A small journal, its cover cracked and worn. I pulled it out, feeling a magnetic pull toward it. As I flipped open the pages, the handwriting was hasty, filled with sketches and frantic notes. My eyes scanned the ink, tracing the words. It was filled with strange experiences, similar to what I'd encountered. Unexplainable whispers, shadows lurking, and a recurring mention of the game. Just as I began to digest the chilling details, I heard it again. The laughter, unmistakably closer this time. My heart raced. It was almost playful, like the laughter of a child. I slammed the journal shut, my mind racing. Who had written this? What game were they talking about? Then I noticed it. A shape in the corner of my vision darting by the mirror. I turned fast, heart pounding so hard I thought it might erupt. But the figure vanished. The air felt heavier now, charged with something dark and menacing. I could feel it. Whatever presence lingered in this house was watching me, waiting. Now I had more questions than answers. Should I read more? Was the journal safe to keep? And where was the child's laughter coming from? Whatever answer lay in front of me felt just out of reach. Before I could decide my next move, a cold breeze swept through the room, flickering the light above. I froze. Someone, or something, was in the house. I wasn't just alone anymore. I stood there frozen, every nerve on high alert. The laughter danced through the air again, this time followed by a soft thud from the hallway. My heart raced as I took a step back, teetering on the edge of panic. What was happening? I wanted to run, but fear held me in place. Instead, I forced myself to breathe slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. The journal felt heavy in my hands. I glanced back at the cabinet, wondering if it would offer any more clues. But deep down, I sensed I needed to confront what was lurking in the house. Resolutely, I set the journal aside and crept toward the hallway. The floorboards creaked under my weight, each sound echoing like a warning. I grasped the edge of the doorframe, peeking around the corner. The dimness of the house swallowed the light, casting shadows that seemed to shift around me. "Hello?" I called out, hoping to sound brave but knowing my voice trembled. No answer. Just the faint creaking of the house settling. Or at least that's what I hoped it was. The laughter erupted again, so unexpectedly that I jumped. It felt closer this time, right down the hall. I followed it, each step forward a battle against my instincts telling me to flee. What exactly was I looking for? The laughter or the presence behind it? As I stepped into the narrow hallway, I noticed a door partially ajar at the end. A soft light flickered through the crack. It seemed like it could be a way out, or maybe a way deeper in. I felt an urge to turn back, to get to safety. But instead, I whispered to myself, "You have to know." I approached the door and pushed it open gently. Inside was a small room cluttered with old toys, dust-matted furniture, and faded drawings lining the walls. The light came from an old lamp flickering on a rickety table. My gaze landed on a rocking horse in the corner, its paint chipped and flaking. Suddenly, I noticed an old photo frame atop the table beside the lamp. I stepped closer, heart pounding as I examined the picture. It was a family, 2 smiling parents and a little girl in a costume. She looked strangely familiar. Then, I felt an icy finger trace down my spine. My eyes darted around the room. The laughter was gone, replaced by silence that suffocated me. That's when I saw it. Scratched into the wooden floor below the rocking horse were words, "Play the game." What game? I had read about this in the journal, but it felt different now. This was no mere curiosity. It was a direct invitation, a challenge. My mind raced with possibilities. Who was the girl in the photo? Was she the one laughing? Before I could make sense of it all, a strong gust of wind blew through the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I jumped, heart in my throat, knowing the presence was no longer just watching. It was here with me. I turned slowly, ready for a confrontation, but I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen next. The moment I turned, I felt a shift in the air. It was warmer, almost electric, and a shadow moved in my periphery. I inhaled sharply, ready to bolt again, but something kept my feet planted to the floor. A gentle laughter rippled through the room, warmer and more inviting than before, yet it held an edge I couldn't ignore. It felt childish, innocent at first, but there was a sinister undercurrent beneath it. I glanced around. Every corner felt alive. The rocking horse creaked subtly, almost like it wanted to join in on the chaos. "Is anyone there?" I called out again, but my voice quivered, betraying my fear. Silence swallowed my words, leaving only the sound of my breathing. Then an old toy drum on the floor began to tap, tap, tap. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of my mind. I was losing it. But it continued. The mocking rhythm pulled me closer. I swallowed hard and knelt down beside the drum. It was worn and dusty, just like everything else in the room. I reached out, my fingers brushing the surface, and the tapping stopped instantly. "Play with me," a child's voice whispered from nowhere. It sent chills racing down my spine. "Who are you?" I asked, but I wasn't sure if I wanted an answer. The electric warmth turned into a cold draft, wrapping around me like ivy. I rose slowly, still on high alert, glancing towards the door. I could push it open and escape, but I felt anchored by something deeper, something that kept me rooted in place. As I took a step back from the drum, something caught my eye beneath the rocking horse. I couldn't see it clearly, but it looked like a worn-out piece of cloth. Compelled to know, I moved toward it. I bent down again, fingers brushing against the rough wood of the floor, and I pulled the cloth free. It was a small, tattered doll dress, dirt-stained and frayed, but still eerily beautiful. A chill fell over me as I recognized the pattern, flowers and tiny butterflies, the same as those drawn on the faded drawings on the wall. Then, a harsh whisper echoed, "She wants to play too." I spun around, heart racing, searching desperately for the source. The air thickened with a darkness that filled the room. I felt it close in, shadows elongating as if they were reaching out to me. The flickering lamp sputtered, and I stumbled back, losing my balance. The touch of something cool brushed against my arm, and I froze. I could feel it close now, whatever it was. I swung around to see nothing but darkness. A shadow of a child appeared in the corner of my vision, giggling softly. "Play the game," the voice cooed, now echoing from the darkness all around me. Panic surged. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. Before I could process what was happening, the light overhead flickered one last time and went out. In total darkness, I felt the hair on my arms stand on end. There was no sound now, only an oppressive silence that pressed against my ears. I was no longer alone. I was in the game. Then everything went dark. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on me, thick and suffocating. Every breath felt labored. A soft rustling came from somewhere close, and I instinctively took a step back, my heart racing in my chest. I fumbled for the door handle, but I couldn't remember where it was. My mind raced through a haze of panic. "Just breathe," I whispered to myself, though my voice felt foreign. I closed my eyes, trying to calm my racing thoughts. All I wanted was to get out, but the fear rooted me to the spot. Just then I heard the sound of tiny feet padding across the floor, light and quick like a dance. "Are you here to play?" The voice chimed, sweet and sing-song, echoing in the dark. It sounded so close that I could almost feel the warmth of its breath on my neck. "No," I shouted, more forcefully than I expected. "I'm not playing. I just want to leave." My voice crackled in the stillness, desperation rising as I strained to hear any response. But there was only silence again, eerie and heavy. I opened my eyes, hoping the dark would have abated, but nothing changed. The shadows felt thick, almost alive, swirling and bending in ways that didn't make sense. I took a cautious step forward, drawn by a sudden flicker of light that seemed to emerge from nowhere. A glow formed ahead, small and flickering like a candle flame, guiding me deeper into the darkness. "Follow me." It beckoned softly, the childlike innocence returning to the voice. Against my better judgment, I moved toward it, hands stretched out in front of me. The flickering light danced just out of reach. The closer I got, the more I discerned the shape of a small figure at its center, a girl, or so it seemed, in the tattered doll dress I had found. Her hair fell in messy strands around her face, and her smile was wide and unnaturally bright. "Come play," she urged, tilting her head. "No." I insisted again, the word tearing from my throat. I turned, ready to run, but she suddenly appeared right in front of me. I stumbled back, nearly falling over my own feet. "What do you want from me?" The air around us shifted again. The cold intensified, wrapping around me like chains. "It's a fun game," she chirped, her voice turning syrupy sweet. "You'll like it." All the others did. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but curiosity began to tug at my thoughts. "Others? What do you mean?" Her grin widened, revealing slightly elongated teeth that glinted in the dim light. "You have to find them," she sang, the words echoing in an unsettling harmony. Then I saw it, a shadowy form creeping along the edge of the room. It was another child, partially obscured in the darkness, whose eyes glimmered like stones in the night. My breath caught in my throat. I was not just talking to one child. There were more. "Too many games," the new voice whispered, almost too softly to hear. "You'll never leave if you play." The girl in front of me giggled again, her laughter splintering the silence like cracking glass. The thrill of terror spiked within me. "What does that mean?" But before I could process her answer, the flickering light flickered out altogether, plunging me back into the depth of darkness. I felt a hot breath on my ear, and with that, my instincts kicked in. I needed to find a way out. That's when I realized the door wasn't in front of me anymore. The darkness closed in, pressing against me like a living thing. I strained my eyes, searching for any glimmer of light. Panic twisted in my stomach as I spun around, looking for the door, anything to escape. But all I saw was blackness. "Think," I hissed, trying to drive the fog from my mind. I remembered the hallway, the narrow path leading to the front door. If I could just find the wall. I shuffled slowly, stretching my hands out to feel for anything solid. The cold air felt thick, like wading through water. Then I heard something else. A faint whisper, as if multiple voices were trying to break through at once. "Help us. Find us," they chanted, almost in harmony. My heart raced. "Who are you?" I yelled, my voice echoing back at me in mocking tones. I felt a sudden chill at my back, like someone was hovering just behind me, waiting. I bolted forward, my instincts pulling me in the direction where I thought the door might be. As I moved, I stumbled over something small and soft. I knelt down to feel it, something familiar. My breath caught when I realized it was the tattered doll dress I had seen on the girl. The fabric felt cold in my hands, sending shivers up my spine. I dropped it, recoiling as if it burned. "Don't leave me," the sweet voice chimed from the darkness. Now there were 2 voices, then 3, all whispering my name. "Stop it!" I shouted, infuriated and terrified all at once. "Just leave me alone." Every instinct told me to keep moving, but my feet felt heavy as if the floor were dragging them back. Then, as if in answer to my desperation, the atmosphere shifted suddenly. A rush of wind ignited the space around me, swirling the darkness into clarity. Bright lights erupted, washing over the room in a blinding glow. I lifted my hands to shield my eyes, startled by the sudden brilliance. Shapes appeared in the light. Those children. Their eyes were glowing, their smiles sharp as knives. "Now you can play with us," they sang in unison, their voices rising, a cacophony that squeezed my chest. I squinted through the brightness, attempting to make sense of it all. "What do you want?" I croaked, trying to hold on to my sanity while I backed away. I glanced around, hoping to see a way out. Anything. Then I noticed something out of place. There on the wall was a door I had never seen before. Old and weathered, it seemed to shimmer in the light. Hope surged in my chest, but as I took a step toward it, the children erupted into laughter, the sound echoing endlessly. "No one leaves," one of them shouted, reaching out with a bony finger. I hesitated, fear coiling in my stomach. I had to make a choice. The laughter morphed into something darker, and I turned to face the door again, realizing time was running out. The shadows closed in closer, encircling me like a predator. My heart pounded louder. I took a deep breath and bolted toward the door, praying it would lead me to freedom. Just as I reached for the handle, it began to rattle and shake, a sinister sound filling the air. Something was waiting behind it. And then everything went dark again. My heart raced as I found myself standing in darkness once more, the laughter echoing faintly in the background. I felt the weight of dread sitting heavy in my chest, but I refused to succumb to fear any longer. I had to escape. Drawing in a shaky breath, I focused on the darkness around me, desperately searching for any sense of direction. Gripping the handle of the door I had reached just before everything went black, I turned it to find it unlocked this time. Hope flickered within me as I pushed the door open. The light flooded back in, illuminating a narrow corridor lined with familiar, ghostly figures of children. They swayed languidly, grinning in a way that was equal parts playful and unnerving. "Play with us," they said in unison, their voices a dissonant melody that echoed through the hallway. "No more games," I shouted, surprising myself with my own courage. "I just want to leave." Instead of retreating, the figures seemed to lean closer, their smiles widening. The sensation made my skin crawl, but I pushed past them, determined. I could feel the air shift, the weight of their lingering shadows pressing against my back, urging me to turn around and join in their eternal dance. My feet carried me forward, seemingly on their own instinct. I darted down the corridor, the distant laughter chasing me. With every step, the whispers grew louder. "Find us, join us." But I kept running, fueled by the fear of being caught. Then I noticed something. There was a window at the end of the corridor, a soft glow spilling through the cracks around its frame. I dashed toward it, knowing it could be my only chance. Frantic hands gripped the windowsill and I pushed with all my strength. The window shifted, but it refused to budge. Energy flared within me as I turned back to glance at the children, who were now only a few steps behind. They stretched out their arms, their laughter turning sinister. I needed to act fast. Desperation surged through me. With a primal yell, I shoved my shoulder into the window's frame, and it finally shattered open with a loud crash. Cold night air poured in, lifting the haze of fear from my mind. I could see the stars glimmering outside, the real world beckoning. I leaped through the opening, tumbling onto the dewy grass below, breathless but free. As I rolled onto my back, gasping for air, a glance at the house revealed the silhouettes of the children at the window, their laughter now distant yet haunting. I scrambled to my feet and turned away, not wanting to entertain the idea that they might pursue me. I dashed across the lawn, making my way into the surrounding darkness of the neighborhood. I could still hear faint echoes of their voices, but they faded into the night, leaving me alone. This town felt different now. The streets, once a backdrop for potential creativity, now felt like a place steeped in forgotten memories. I walked, pulse racing, replaying that night in my mind over and over. Did any of it really happen? Had I crossed over into some other realm, or was it all in my head, an elaborate trick of the imagination? I didn't stop to find out. I moved away from that house, leaving it behind like a shadow, hoping it would stay in the past. But sometimes in the depth of the night I still hear laughter echoing through my thoughts as if they are calling. I never returned to that neighborhood. I moved to a different city, but a small part of me knows that whatever I encountered that Halloween isn't completely gone. The lingering questions aren't easy to shake off. Maybe it wasn't just a game after all.